Most of Ash's Pokemon are water types, and they're totally weak against fire type.
The rest of this battle's gonna be tough.
They're idiots.
Hey, welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be taking a look at my top 5 favorite water-type Pokemon for PokeRogue. Only rule is no overpowered crap like Legendaries, Mythicals, Ultra Beasts, or Paradox Pokemon. They're all good. That's your list for those. That's it for the intro, so for the short intro. At number 5, we have Corphish. Everybody give a round of applause for Corphish. But not too big of a round of applause, because he's only number 5. So he's not that great. But he's still really good. So I honestly just have Corphish on here because I really like him anyways. There's probably better options out there, but this is what I chose because this is my list. So Corphish gets access to 2 things that are obscenely broken when used in conjunction, and that's adaptability and tough claws. So I'm going to jump into the Pokedex here so we can actually see the abilities and everything. So adaptability, I think we know what that does. Most people know what that does. It just powers up moves of the same type, which on its own is already pretty good. But then he also gets tough claws. So powers up moves that make direct contact, and these just kind of work in conjunction with him also having 2 really good stab typings to have, water and dark. He just hits a lot of things really hard. And he also gets access to knockoff at level 16. And if you know how knockoff works, that is extremely good in PokeRogue, because almost everything has items when you get to the higher tiers, and he just gets rid of those items and hits really hard. If you can even go fast enough or survive to pull the knockoff off. That was hard to say, but you probably won't. Who knows? He's very frail. We'll talk more about the negatives in a moment, but that knockoff is going to be hard to actually use. Moving on, he also gets access to Swords Dance at 40, which is a little bit later, but Swords Dance is just really good because in PokeRogue it carries through waves. Any kind of buffs, that's going to be true for all the Pokemon moving forward. I'll try not to keep repeating myself. But with Swords Dance, he can just kind of decimate things with adaptability and tough claws, and that's just kind of amazing. It does require some smart play to set up because of how squishy he is, but if you can predict a switch or use it on something that can't hit you very hard, Swords Dance into really good stab moves is just really great with this guy. He has like a base 120 attack power or something like that. I'm too lazy to move over there and show it. Yeah, it's 120. I have it on a list. It's on a list I'm staring at. I'm lying. It's not. Okay, so it is 120. I was right. As far as his egg moves go, Ceaseless Edge is decent. It's good, you know, setup potential with spikes and stuff, but also it's not as good as something that's going to leave behind like Stealth Rocks. But it's fine. It's a fine move, but that's not what he's really here for. Shell Sidearm, I don't care about. I have not really researched it to see if it works well in PokeRogue. It's only partially implemented. What we're really here for is Sucker Punch and Jet Punch. So giving him 2 amazing priority moves that both benefit from adaptability and tough claws. If you can predict when to use these moves and avoid getting hit, and you've got Swords Dance off, you can just sweep an entire enemy trainer with no problems whatsoever. He's going to one-shot basically anything that doesn't resist him. So all of these things, they kind of come together to make Corphish, or rather Crawdaunt, which is also fun to say, a very good revenge killer. So if you don't really know a lot about competitive Pokemon or anything like that, revenge killers are essentially Pokemon that are meant to come in when your opponent has a little bit of health left and has defeated the one before. And a revenge killer just comes in and finishes it off, basically guaranteed. Usually it's something that's really fast or something with priority moves. And since we're getting 2 really good priority moves and we hit like a truck, you can revenge kill super easy with this thing and get rid of any problem Pokemon that have kind of just, you know, managed to slime around still. I don't know what slime around means. Sounds inappropriate, but I'm going to leave that in. The other way that you can use that as well is just if the opponent knows that you have priority moves. Sometimes they know and sometimes they don't. I really haven't quite figured out how the AI works, but opponents have a really high chance of switching out when they're low health anyway, so you could also just kind of try to get in a cheeky Swords Dance when you know they're going to switch like that, and then you're great. But anyways, we're going to move on to the negatives of Crawdaunt / Corphish, and that it is very frail and very slow. So without the priority moves, if you don't have the egg moves, it's not going to be all that great for you. And if you do get hit first, it's likely you're probably not going to survive. This thing, it has really low special defense, decent defense, but then also really low health, and only 55 speed. It's going to get outsped. It's going to probably get 1, maybe 2 shot if you're lucky. So it does take a lot of game knowledge to use appropriately, but if you do it well, it's really good. But that's how it's going to end up at number 5, because it has a really high skill floor, and the skill ceiling is decent, but he's mostly here because I like his face. Moving on to number 4, we have the Squirtle Boy. I don't have any jokes for this that wouldn't get me demonetized, so do with this empty space what you will. Okay, hopefully that was long enough. Moving on. So Squirtle, as a starter, like stage 1, he has decent stats. You'll see he kind of has pretty good bulk for the early game and still has decent special attack and attack. He's going to do okay. But we're going to move on to Blastoise, which is the one that really matters here. And Blastoise actually has really good bulk and decent offensive stats. But we're going to fix that because he also gets Shell Smash. So, I mean, Shell Smash. Like, I don't think I need the rest of this entire section about Blastoise. The more I'm looking at my list of talking points, the more I'm thinking I could just end it with Shell Smash and I think you'd all be satisfied. But I'm going to keep talking anyways because I like my voice. So the benefits to Blastoise having really good defenses and also being moderately slow is that after he Shell Smashes, he's still relatively bulky. I mean, he's not going to be like as bulky as he was, obviously, but he still could probably take a hit. And having the lower speed, he's actually going to be able to get hit first most of the time and then Shell Smash afterwards, so you don't just get one shot immediately. That's kind of great. You also get Shell Smash pretty early. You actually get it as War Turtle at level 35. So as soon as you hit Blastoise at 36, you've got Shell Smash. You can just kind of do one Shell Smash and then just clean up after that. Another upside is, this is kind of a basic Pokemon thing, but he's a stage 3 evolution. Like, you know, there's 3 of them. And so he kind of evolves progressively as you get into the mid game. So you're going to have a steady growth rather than just something that's decent at the beginning and then falls off later, or something that's really weak for a long time and then gets really good later. He just kind of grows as the run goes. So he's a pretty good / decent Pokemon to use as your lead for the early game, as long as you don't get a bad matchup with your rival. So looking at Blastoise's, or Squirtle I guess rather's, abilities and passive. So his abilities aren't really anything amazing. Rain Dish is helpful, obviously, but I mean, if you don't have it, it's not that big of a deal. I don't have it. I could care less, if I'm being honest. Torrent can come in clutch. With Shell Smash, you probably won't need it, but I mean, it's just there. You just kind of forget that it's there, and then it helps and you win. But his passive, while kind of boring, actually synergizes really well with his kit. So Dauntless Shield, letting you come in and get an immediate defense boost by doing nothing but just being present, is kind of great, because once you Shell Smash, you're actually losing less defense because you've already buffed your defense. So it just kind of pairs nice and lets him still be relatively bulky. It's still not needed, so if you don't have his passive, that's fine. You can still use him just fine. He's just not going to be quite as bulky after he breaks his own shell like a weirdo. Another big perk to Blastoise is he also gets a Mega and a G-Max form, which there's not many Pokemon that get both. They're still both pretty rare. They require a lot of rare items to be found, and by a lot, I mean like 2. So that's a lot. In my case, I don't like counting very often. But we'll take a look at the Mega first. These are both decent Pokemon, obviously they're Megas and G-Maxes, but if you don't get them, Blastoise still does fine. But Mega Blastoise is just better at everything normal Blastoise does, and his guns are bigger, so that's also a thing. He's kind of going like almost full Digimon mode here. And then his ability and passive also change. He gets Mega Launcher, which is fine. It pairs pretty well with some of his moves, better with his egg moves. And then he gets Bulletproof, which is also fine. I don't know. I like Dauntless Shield better. Bulletproof is extremely helpful sometimes and then completely useless most of the time. But it is a thing. He's got higher base stats. It's probably worth using in most cases. And then we'll jump straight down to the egg moves since I mentioned them, and I'm going to put off the G-Max because I know it'll annoy somebody and you'll yell at me about it. But as far as his egg moves go, he gets really good ones. Again, you don't need any of these. Blastoise is still pretty solid without them. But Freeze Dry is just always decent to have. Armor Cannon is amazing, deals with any pesky grass types. It lowers your defenses more, but you're already going to be super fast and kind of, dropping your defenses anyways. So whether or not you care is a whole different story. Shore Up, you just heal your health, or in a Sandstorm. Kind of weird that he gets Shore Up with Sandstorm synergy, but I guess that works for the G-Max because he becomes Steel type. We'll get to that in a second. And then Origin Pulse is really good. It's a Pulse move, gets buffed up by Mega, and also it's Origin Pulse. And then jumping over to G-Max Blastoise, this thing just kind of turns into a fortress. But not the Pokemon fortress. Instead, it's just a literal fortress. It's kind of cool, though. I like it. I don't know. Now I'm looking at it more. It kind of looks like a space station. I don't know where I was going with any of that, so let's look at his stats. The stats are, again, just a little bit better than what Blastoise already does, but he just gets slower, which with Shell Smash is actually kind of beneficial. We talked about that if you remember it from about 3 minutes ago or so. And then as far as as far as abilities, they both start with an A, I was close. As far as ability and passive, he gets Bulletproof again, same opinion matters here. And then he gets Shell Armor, which, I mean, whoopee, I guess. It comes in clutch sometimes. If you're doing a Nuzlocke run or something, it's probably gonna be really great. I don't know. I don't hate it. It's a good ability, I guess. Blastoise is kind of, you know, in need of good abilities, and this is an ability of all time, I guess. So, yeah, I mean, G-Max is pretty good against Steel type. He gets pretty defensive with Water and Steel, so that's good. So, you know, pretty decent Pokemon overall. But again, getting the Mega and the G-Max are pretty rare, but Blastoise on his own is still going to be pretty good. He also gets access to a variety of ice moves outside of just, you know, Freeze Dry isn't ice. Weird considering the name. Is Freeze Dry ice? I forget what moves are. Freeze Dry is ice. Name makes sense, me not. But as far as TM moves, that's where his ice moves are going to be. He gets access to a lot of ice moves that are really good. Avalanche, Blizzard, Ice Beam. I'm not scrolling all the way down the list, but he gets other stuff too. And ice moves are going to be really good against Ray and Eternatus. And, you know, just a lot of other things. Ice is good to have. So the fact that he gets a lot of access to it is great. However, the negatives of Blastoise is he is still kind of weak-ish until he gets Shell Smash, which I guess is going to be Squirtle and Wartortle. With him evolving as the game progresses, he is going to get a little bit stronger and be more useful and be able to last throughout the early and mid game. But he's not going to just breeze through the early and mid game like some other Pokemon can very easily. Another downside is also like Corphish, he requires a lot of setup to pull off. A lot of setup. He requires you to use Shell Smash and not die, which again can happen. You could just, you know, go out trying to set up. But once you set up, he kind of just sweeps, and it's in a better fashion than Corphish does, because he's going to outspeed everything anyways. He has better coverage. He has just better stats all around, and that's, yeah, I mean, if you can do it, it's great. I mean, he needs to set up, so that's a negative, but that's not that big of a deal. So yeah, Blastoise is going to manage to hit number 4, basically just because no matter what you have, egg moves or passive or anything else, he's still going to be good. He's just not going to be quite as busted as the next 3 we're going to talk about. Alright, starting us off with the more broken territory of Pokemon. At number 3, we have Quaxly, the Dapper Duck himself. So kind of for the same reasons that Squirtle was good as far as progressing throughout the game, he kind of does the same thing. His stats are also kind of decent all around throughout the stages. It's just kind of the reverse of Squirtle's, whereas he's a little bit, you know, not bulky, but a little bit stronger. And then as he finally evolves into Quaquaval, you might see his stats and think that's not that great. He's got 120 attack, 85 speed, which is okay, and then everything else is kind of mediocre, but that's fine. We'll get to why that's fine in a minute, all right? Just bear with me. Trust in the process. I do want to mention real quick that he is a water fighting type, which is just a fun typing. It's not exactly a good typing, but it's fun, and I like fun. That's why we play games. So that's another pro going on for him, besides the fact that, I mean, that design is just hideously amazing. I love it and hate it so much at the same time. So as far as level up moves, the big thing we want to talk about is his signature move, Aqua Step. So he does get some other things. He gets close combat and acrobatics, and those are things. Wave Crash is fine, but really it's Aqua Step we want to talk about, because it just one use Aqua Step and you kind of just make up for the bad speed that he has. And it also hits pretty hard. I mean, it's just kind of, it's basically Waterfall with a speed boost. But the point where you start seeing where he can be a little bit extremely busted is his egg moves. If you can get these unlocked, he gets some kind of really amazingly broken things. So Dragon Dance, one of the best moves in the game, arguably the best dance. So attack and speed buff, that's just really good for him. Triple Axle is just amazing on any Pokemon. Multi-hit ice move helps Ray and Eternatus and just bosses in general. And then Power Trip seems like a weird choice besides the Dragon Dance and Aqua Step combo. But you're going to see in a minute why that's even more busted. If you know what his passive is, you already know exactly why. But his Rare Egg move is okay. It's a good stab move. It lowers defense. You don't need it. So if you don't get the rare one, it's really not that big of a deal. Alright, so moving into his abilities and his passive, this gets really dumb.
Whose idea was this?
Like, in the best way. So his hidden ability is Moxie, which is already good and is most of the time just overkill, but every time he knocks something out, he's just going to get stronger. But his passive is where he really shines against certain enemies. So pretty much anything that's holding berries or against most bosses that are going to buff themselves when you damage them. Opportunist is just so good. So raising your stats anytime the opponent raises their stats stacks with power trips so well and can get so insane. I think I have footage somewhere if I was like between all my stats like a plus 30 and just sweeping everything with power trip. So as far as negatives go, it's really just the fact that without his egg moves and his hidden ability and passive, he's really just not amazing. He's still decent, but he's just going to be really kind of mediocre. And speaking of mediocre, he also has very mediocre type coverage. His move pool is not very wide, and some of the stuff that he gets is just very bleh. So you could honestly make the argument that you could swap him and Squirtle for the number 3 and 4 slots, because Squirtle is just going to be, on average, very decent at worst, whereas Quaquaval is going to be very meh sometimes, and then amazingly good. When he pops off, he's just going to sweep everything, decimate bosses, and just carry runs. But it takes a lot of luck and investment to get that, which is why he can't come close to the number 2 and 1 picks, because they are very not luck-based at all and just decimate games guaranteed every time. And for number 2, we're actually going to be talking about Magikarp. I'm betting you didn't see this one coming, because we're not going to talk about Gyarados. Everybody talks about Gyarados, but what they don't know is Magikarp is actually way better. So you might not think it, looking at his base stats, although this thing has an amazing base speed of 80 and a base defense of 55, which is actually really incredible when you think about it. And when you look at his typing, he's actually pure water, which means if you don't evolve into Gyarados, you don't get the pesky 4 times weakness to electric, which is just really good. This thing is definitely not going to get one shot by any electric moves. I mean, look at it. It's got 55 defense, 20 special defense, 20 HP. This thing's actually really good. And then when you take a look at his egg moves, he gets Flip Turn, Ice Spinner, Knockoff, Dragon Ascent. I mean, the big moves are going to make up for the mediocre attack. Okay, I can't actually keep this going any longer. Hopefully that was long enough. I haven't pulled the old switcheroo in a while, but obviously we're talking about Gyarados. Nobody cares about the derpy fish. So the real number 2 pick is going to be Gyarados. He's the reason why you're picking Magikarp. He doesn't evolve until level 20, which I will go ahead and get that big con out of the way. Everybody knows that he's basically useless until he evolves. He's going to sit in the back. The other downside to that is once he does evolve, he's probably going to be, behind in levels, so you're going to have to catch him up before he's really going to be useful. But this thing's stats are really good. It does have the 4 times weakness to electric, but it kind of makes up for that with 95 HP and 100 special defense. So he's relatively bulky. He probably won't take a good electric move from anything with half decent attack stats, but that's fine. We have things to make up for that. We'll talk about that in a minute. But also 81 speed and 125 attack is really good. The only bad stat he really has is special attack, which he does get a lot of special moves for some kind of odd carryover from before the physical special split. We won't talk about that, but basically you can ignore like 90% of his move pool from level up. But the physical moves he gets through leveling up are actually really good. So he does get access to Ice Fang. Unfortunately, it's at 8, so you're going to have a Memory Mushroom to get that. If you don't have his egg moves to get Ice Spinner, Ice Fang is a very good cover for that. And then his go-to, he gets at 21, so 1 level after evolving, he's going to get Waterfall, which is just by far the best water move that he's going to get. His egg move is Flip Turn. I don't use that. You're going to be using Dragon Dance on this guy anyways, and you don't really want to be pivoting unless you're trying to abuse Intimidate, but there's so much better things you can do with him, like Dragon Dancing once or twice and sweeping an entire team. So it's really not necessary. And then just 3 levels later, he gets Crunch, which is amazing good coverage. It's a really good move overall. It might lower defense, but you're going to be 1-shotting or 2-shotting everything anyway, so that doesn't matter. The egg move that he gets is Knockoff, which 90% of the time is going to be better than this, but Crunch still does amazing, anytime you don't have Knockoff. And then the last move that you actually care about that he gets is Dragon Dance. I mean, we've mentioned it before, it's the best dance. It's got dragon in the name. He looks like a big derpy dragon. it's just going to do really good. You're going to set up a Dragon Dance or two, just kind of tanking a hit or two if you have to, and then just sweep everything. Now, as far as on his egg moves, he does get Dragon Ascent, and I haven't mentioned that. That's his rare egg move. It's great. I ditch it for Dragon Dance every single time. It's not a bad move by any means, but you really just don't need it. The coverage isn't really that useful. The base power being that high really doesn't matter. He doesn't need a flying move. It's good if you have it. It's good if you want to keep it. You don't really need it. And then his abilities, I feel like I'm kind of speeding through this guy, but I mean, everybody knows this guy's good. I've talked about him before. I've used him in almost every video that I've done. I'm sure everyone here has been using this thing since at least Gen 2 when you get given a free shiny one. In Gen 1, you might have missed it, not really realizing. But anyway, I'm getting off topic here. His base ability is Intimidate, which is extremely good. You should be intimidated when this thing comes out. He doesn't even know how to close his mouth. That's pretty intimidating on its own because it's really creepy. But it also lowers attack when he enters, which is going to help him tank a hit to Dragon Dance easier. And it's also just really good to have in general. But his hidden ability, Moxie, is most of the time better. But usually it's kind of going to be overkill. Every time you knock something out and you're getting stronger, most of the time Moxie is just not necessary. If you have good setup moves, you're going to be using anyways. But it's there if you get it and you want it. You could honestly go with either of these two abilities and it's going to be fine. Now, his passive is what is really good. So multi-skill, letting him take half damage when he's at full health is going to let you survive electric attacks, basically reducing it to just a normal, like 2 times weakness instead of 4, which is really good. And then also just tanking hits from anything else. You're going to be able to set up almost guaranteed every time. And if you can get some life restoring ability or items like leftovers and shell bell, you're just going to be able to get back up to full health and reactivate this ability every time you get hit, which just becomes insanely broken. Now, Gyarados can Mega Evolve, which like the others is pretty rare. The base stats on this thing are insane. The Water Dark lets you get Stab on Crunch and Knockoff, which is also really good, and you ditch the 4 times weakness to Electric, and the Flying type Stab that you're not using anyways. I mean, you do get opened up to getting hurt with ground attacks, but it doesn't really matter all that much. This thing's really bulky. His defenses go insane. The downside to Mega Evolving is you do get what is honestly just a much worse ability with Mold Breaker. But losing Moxie and Intimidate is kind of, you're already setting up anyways. You don't really need either of those. Mold Breaker doesn't necessarily matter. And the base stats for this kind of makes up for it. So if you get the Mega Evolution, I would definitely use it. It's probably not going to be gotten very often, and without it, Gyarados is still going to be one of the best Pokemon you could get anytime you just want to win a run. I arguably could have put him as number 1, but I feel like it's kind of a go-between. The downside to Gyarados, really, besides leveling up late and not being able to use him in the early game as your main carry, is that he also doesn't get any multi-hit moves. So he's going to have a harder time with bosses if you don't set up really well, but you can also do like 2 Dragon Dances and then just solo Eternatus with him. So do you really need multi-hit moves? Probably not, but that's kind of why I put the next choice at number 1, and you probably already know what it's going to be. So the number 1 spot for my favorite / best water starter for PokeRogue has to go to my boy Shelter, with what is just absolutely the peak Pokemon design. I mean, that tongue, the eyes, I mean, this thing just screams we took a real-world animal and actually made it look a little bit different, unlike Pidgey and, even Magikarp for that matter. But this thing is just really good. It could be swapped with Gyarados, but the reason why I chose him for starters is that he actually has really good base stats even before evolving. 100 defense, I mean only 30 HP, but 100 defense, this thing is not going to take much damage at all in the first couple of biomes where everything's using mostly physical attacks. And then it still has 65 attack, so it's going to do a lot of damage. It's not going to take much damage. It's moderately-ish fast. It's 40. I mean, you might be outspeeding a lot of the stuff in the early game because they're not super fast and you're going to be out-leveled anyways. So you might still be doing pretty good until you evolve, which actually brings us to the next positive for him, is that he can evolve pretty much whenever you want. Based on finding a water stone, you could get really bad luck and not find one until really late. But you could also potentially evolve this thing in the first biome, and then it just becomes insane. So when Cloyster evolves, or when Shelter evolves in the Cloyster, he's actually really good at helping you find the right spot in your run. The right spot. If you don't get that joke, just keep at it. You'll figure it out eventually, but it's right there. As far as stats go, Cloister basically just does what Shelter was already doing and then bumps it up to like 11. Like, base defense of 180, this thing is not going down to like even a double effective, there are no double effective moves on it, but like even a super effective physical move is not going to take this thing down, even with its 50 HP. It has 95 attack, which is really good, 85 special, so if you want to use special moves on it, you can, and it actually learns a lot of very decent special moves like Ice Beam. Its special defense is kind of garbage. That's fine. It has a passive that's going to help with that, and its speed is 70, so it's actually a little bit slower than Blastoise, which means once you get Shell Smash on it, which I do believe you'll have to actually use a Memory Mushroom for. Yeah, so Shell Smash, you'll have to use a Memory Mushroom unless you, for some reason, get stuck with Shelter up until like level 30 something, he ends up learning it. But Memory Mushrooms are super easy to get. You just grab that, you get Shell Smash. As soon as you evolve, you're also going to get Icicle Spear, which is insane on Shelter, which if you've ever used one, you already know why. But his ability is going to make that incredibly busted. His other level up moves are just kind of meh. I mean, he gets Razor Shell, which is decent. Icicle Crash is pretty good. Ice Shard is really good for priority. Just in case you don't have a Shell Smash off, you can get that priority last hit to finish something off. And then Toxic Spikes is really good for setup against pretty much any trainer battle, or even in the normal biomes when you're setting it up between waves. Now, where Shelter starts to shine is in his egg moves, which again are not actually necessary, but they really help give him the good type coverage that he needs, because he doesn't get a lot of coverage otherwise. But Rock Blast, Water Shuriken, Baneful Bunker, Bone Rush are all very good. I personally usually end up ditching either Water Shuriken, well actually I guess both Water Shuriken and Baneful Bunker to get Shell Smash and Icicle Spear. Water Shuriken is really good, but it's not amazing. He doesn't really need a stab water move. And Baneful Bunker is also good, but just not very necessary. You could keep it over like Bone Rush or Rock Blast, whichever one. It's up to you. He can do a lot with what he has, and even if he doesn't get them, he still does a lot anyways. Mostly due to his abilities. So Shell Armor is Shell Armor, it's fine, it's whatever, but you're not going to use it. You're going to be using Skill Link. So getting max hits guaranteed with multi-hit moves with Icicle Spear is going to just decimate any boss in the game that is even remotely a challenge. One Shell Smash, Icicle Spear like 6 times and any trainer's out of the way. Icicle Spear once and most bosses are out of the way. This thing can like 2-shot Eternatus. It's insane. His hidden ability is Overcoat. We don't care about that. You don't need that. You don't even want it. It's terrible compared to Skill Link. Just don't ever take it. And then his passive is Ice Scales, which, if I remember right, it used to be Starty, which gave you a guaranteed setup of Shell Smash, which I thought was really insane and amazing, but it also didn't come into play that often. Ice Scales kind of just makes up for his low special defense by having all damage he takes from special attacks. So essentially, he has 90 base special defense instead of 45. So he just becomes insanely bulky. Even after a Shell Smash, he's still going to take a good hit and just be able to sweep anything that comes even remotely close to causing a problem. As far as negatives, I've already kind of talked about him, and you probably didn't even notice because they're not even that bad. He's got poor type coverage without his egg moves, which again doesn't matter. Ice is already pretty good on its own, and he gets a few good water moves anyways, and he has pretty good attack and special attacks. Shell Smash buffs both, so you still have some options. And then he does have super low HP and special defense, but again, if you have Ice Scales, that doesn't matter either. If you don't have it, you can still work around it. And then the Memory Mushrooms are kind of annoying because you're going to need them to get at least 2 of his good moves. And then him requiring a Water Stone to evolve is kind of hit or miss. It could be amazingly early or super late if you're just terribly unlucky. But outside of that, he doesn't take as much luck because he does need to set up like Blastoise and Crawdaunt do. But he can do it way safer than they can because his defense is so bulky. You come out against a physical attacker, you just don't care. And then if you have Ice Scales, you don't care about anything. And then you just proceed to sweep with 0 skill required. This thing, I said you could replace it with Gyarados. I honestly think the more I've talked about it, this thing deserves to be at number 1. If you think he's number 2 and Gyarados is number 1, that's fine. If you think something isn't on the list is number 1, you're wrong. But that's fine as well. You're allowed to be wrong. So All of these water starters are extremely strong picks. They're my personal go-tos, arguably some of the best in the game, in my opinion. Unfortunately, Wishy-Washy did not quite make the list. I really wanted to put him on here. This thing is also insane. I'm not even going to talk about him, though. Just, if you've used one with any kind of healing moves, you already know. But this is my last second honorable mention. I really wanted to put him on the list, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it, because in most cases, it's not going to work out well. But he has carried me in a couple of my runs, and a few live streams, so that was really funny. But other than that, making this list was extremely difficult, because there are so many good Pokemon in this game with so many combinations. If you have any other options that you think deserve to be on the list, or anything that you just disagree with that I said, please let me know down in the comments. If you've watched this far, thank you. Just know that it really does mean a lot. It really helps me out. If you've watched this far, you obviously like the content to some extent, or you at least like listening to me out of hate. That's fine. Subscribe to me so you can do it more. And probably check out more of these videos that are on the screen right about now. The algorithm really gets off on that whenever you click on those. And other than that, I will catch you next time.